All right, thanks everyone for joining this afternoon. Our agenda today is to take a look at some of the great work that Akshay and the team at NLU have been doing to support the school project. Uh, Before we get into that, just to quickly introduce ourselves, my name is Kit McManus. I'm the PI on the TOPS T school project. And I think the other folks in the meeting know who I am, so I'll hand it over to Dr. Tovar.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for taking some time to talk to us. My name is Antonio Tovar. I'm one of the faculty members over at National Knowledge University. I oversee a lot of students' research. And as part of that, I met with Juan, was it February, I think it was, I saw Kate around, but I never talked to him in person, right? But I saw him walking around. And we started talking about a partnership and doing this with a lot of our students over here who are looking to work on projects. So I'm just here to sort of make sure that my students get involved, they do their work as well, right? And also to provide some technical advice. I have a lot of experience with development. I do Python, I do R. I used to do COBOL and assembly programming back in the day, right? I'm that old. So I've been around for a while in different capacities. My last job was I was running the IT for a very large hospital network here in Chicagoland, touching everything, right? And so I decided I was going to go teach full time, and here I am. It's been 5 years and still loving it, right? All right, thanks, Keith.
All right, thank you, Antonio. Next person on my screen is Juan.
Hi, everybody. How are you? My name is Juan Martinez. I'm a senior research assistant at CIESIN, and I'm part of the development team for the school project.
Thanks, Juan. Next person is Josh.
Hi there, I'm Josh Brinks. I'm a research scientist with a private firm called iSciences, and we're a open source FOSS focused group when we can be, and we partner with Columbia and Kit and those folks quite a bit on stuff. So we're a nice small business grant partner.
Thanks, Josh. Akshay.
Hello. So my name's Akshay. So there's a big mistake. So I'm not from NLU. But I'm working with Dr. Tua. So I'm from DePaul. I'm doing my master's in AI at DePaul University. Before getting into my master's education, so I was working for about 6.5, 7 years. So worked at Microsoft and OpenAI, both on the GPT model. So if you see ChatGPT now, so that's something I did work on, hands-on properly. And apart from that, I do a lot of open source. So I kind of I'm one of the maintainers of Django. So if you heard of Django, so that's something I used to maintain. I don't do it that often right now. I'm from the UK, so that's why the weird accent. So, and I'm happy to work on this initiative, and I've done something, so would like to show that thing to you soon.
Thanks, Akshay. Greg.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Greg Yepman, Associate Director for Geospatial Applications at CIESIN, and on TOPS T School, I'm co-I, where I sort of help kid out when I can. I'll put it that way. My background's geography, GIS, programming, lots of projects over the years.
Thanks, Greg. And thanks, Dan, for joining us. We're just doing introductions. You want to just say a word about it?
Sure thing. Yeah, I'm Dan Best, and I'm a software engineer at iSciences. Most of the work I'm doing right now is on open source maintenance. So I am one of the maintainers of GDAL, and as well as GEOS, and a library called Exact Extract that I developed at iSciences. And so documentation for some of those projects is using Sphynx. So the Tom Paris asked me to join and check this out.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Dan. So great. So Akshay, I think at this point, I'll just hand it over to you to demonstrate the progress that you've been able to make, and then we'll open it up for questions. If anyone has a question along the way, though, just raise your hand and I'll help moderate it.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in really quick that I told Akshay that the purpose of this meeting is for Akshay to showcase and demo some of the Sphinx technology and some of the work that he's been doing lately for the school project. And he also wanted to maybe ask some questions and, of course, open the opportunity for you to ask some questions. Actually, there's different levels of knowledge about Sphinx. So some of us are well-versed, but some of us do not know much. So keep that in mind. And yeah, take it away.
All right, so can you guys see my screen?
Yep, I can see it.
So, okay, so I have these two tabs open. So one is the VS Code, so that's the editor that I'm using. And the other one is just a browser where you can see the website. So right now, this is what I have made so far. So this is the whole TOPS website. So basic what you see here. So the school module, the whole thing. We'll try to summarize the whole thing in just one website. And feel free to stop me at any point. So, if you have any questions, just feel free to chime in. A couple of things. This is based on Sphinx. So just a quick TLDR, Sphinx is basically a documentation engine. So you guys use Quarto to write all the documentation and build the whole website. So Sphinx does the same thing. It's basically just a documentation engine, and it uses restructured text or my structured text as the markup language under the hood. So this is the Sphinx website. I'll share the links with you in the chat so that you guys can check those things out. And I'll keep this here. So this is basically a documentation engine. So as I said, you can write a lot of different documents, and most of the documentation, the Python-based documentations or the open science and open source based documentations are kind of built on Sphinx or using Sphinx. So for example, Jupyter, the whole Jupyter project is based on the Sphinx engine. A few of the Python, not few, I would say, like rather a lot of documentations for the Python and the PyData suite of things like NumPy, Pandas. They use Sphinx as their documentation layout for the website. So you guys I've seen you guys have used xArray for a lot of things. Again, xArray is also based on Sphinx. I have a couple of things open, so I'll show you that too. So this is, again, just a documentation engine. So like how you guys do Sphinx, the Quarto build, Sphinx build the same thing. So you just give some tags, you give some flags, a source directory, an output directory, and it will basically make HTML pages, static HTML pages for that particular markup language. So if you have Markdown, you can use Markdown. You have restructured text, or you go with restructured text. So it supports both. I kind of prefer to write a lot of things in restructured text because I find it's quite easy to write it down. And coming from Python background, it's just you just have to follow the indentation. So that's mostly it. If I'll show you the code here. So this is a restructured text document, so you just write something. This is something a directive. You just write a directive and you just give some explanation what you want. And if it goes or if it spans multiple lines, you just have to indent it. That's it. So there's nothing that you have to consider in here. They have in Markdown, you use pound to give a different header levels. In restructured text, you just write the overline or the underline to give different levels of hierarchy, the headers. So in this case, come back here. So this is the main header for this page. So this is going to be H1 basically. Then this is something I wrote my own extension. So why I'm focusing more on Sphinx or why I'm pushing Sphinx is because Sphinx, again, being open source and the back is included thing, you can still add a lot of things on top of it. So like you can make your own extensions. So I made a lot of extensions for this particular project. So like, having this particular like fancy view, where the background kind of changes based on a gradient, you have a little image, you have a title, you have a subtitle, or like a summary of the page. So that's something I made as an extension here. And I'm using Font Awesome icons, which are like all free, and you can just give the name and it automatically renders things out. So this again, it's part of an extension that I made. So, and all these extensions are included as part of this theme. So you don't have to do anything, it's just included. So like I want to show when this page was contributed, or like when this page was written or drafted or updated. So right now I see here like, for example, the previous is on here. So Drewell and America wrote this page on July 3rd. So it's the same thing. It just wanted to have the same functionality here. Like, this was written by me or Elena on this particular date. And the page is about, the reading time of this page is about 3 minutes, where we wrote like, it was Chicago and the language. So the one thing, okay, I'll just go over the language editor on. You just write your text, you give hyperlinks. So how you have the same thing here, as in these are like the hyperlinks that you wrote in the quarter. You do the same thing in Sphynx too. You can just give hyperlinks here like this. This is one way of me doing hyperlinks, because I like to keep things clear and simple, so that like all the clutter is on a different page, and I just give the bare minimum for the stuff to work on. So you can just give hyperlinks, and you can see it's part of, so it is like it's part of, and it automatically transitions to this particular thing, kind of expands to the NASA's open tops stuff. So again, bunch of hyperlinks, you give image. So what you see here, so you have added images here, you can show the same images using Sphynx too. So basically, again, it's the same thing. It's just a documentation engine, but using restructured text as a markup language. So a couple of things here. Now there are a few more extensions. These are extensions that I didn't write. These are like from other open source projects, like having a drop-down menu. So, you click here and you get a drop-down menu, because sometimes, it becomes super overwhelming to see a lot of content on a web page. So it's better to hide some information. So I tried of using drop-downs. So now this drop-down menu is the content in here is basically the same thing. You just tell, okay, I want a drop-down. I want a title for the drop-down. So you get the title and then you write the content. Again, it's the same thing. It's an unordered list. So how we write in Markdown, that you give hyphen and you get the bullet points link list. You have the same thing here. If you write pound and give some number, you get a list, a numbered list. So again, ordered list, unordered list, you get the same thing. The talk tree is basically the table of contents. So what you see here, this thing is the table of content. And I didn't want to have this thing here so that it doesn't look, it looks bad. So that's why I just wanted to hide that thing. So I wrote hidden. So it's hidden away here. And now I just gave all the table of content, because this is the index page, right? So this is where everyone is going to come, and we want the index page to have all the information in here. So now the other thing is one good thing with Sphynx, and this is something I didn't find with Quarto. I was doing my research on to see like why Quarto would be a better pick, as in terms of like the ease of use. I couldn't find the translation, or like the I-18N, the internationalization thing. And so when I was experimenting with it, so I made this one like a small widget. If you click on this language, you get an option to switch between the languages. So it's English and Spanish. Okay, my Spanish is bad, so don't quote me on this. I just use Google Translate for this one. When you click this, the whole page translates, at least the most of it. So okay, the translations would be bad. Okay, this I just like use translate function to do this, and you get the local translation of these pages, and you don't have to write the whole thing. You just have to translate the stuff that you want to, and it automatically switches. I just did this one page just for the demo, just to showcase like what we can do with Sphynx and how easy it is to do that. So this is just one demo. And now moving on to the main stuff, that was the water module lesson 1. So I tried to, okay, this is where I took a lot of liberty to restructure a lot of things. I was thinking that, there should be a one way to have one cohesive website or a page where we put all the information, so all the modules can go there. So I had this one structure called as just modules, and you go to the next page and you get the overview of all the modules. So this is just about the water module. That's the first thing. I added a video from NASA's actual website. So you can see the satellite observations of human activities on freshwater levels. So I thought that this information is quite relevant for this particular use case or for this particular module, the water module. So, I just wrote this, put in this information as in video. And this is what you can do with Sphynx, as in, if I go to that particular page. Yeah, this is in modules overview. So if you see this is just a video. I just put in the link of this particular video and it will just work just fine. You can play the video and you can pause the video and all those things. So it's basically just embedding a video inside your website. The other thing is the glossary, because I based this thing on this particular section, like what all things are there. So first we start with a brief description of what water module is about and what you study in it. So it's the same thing. I just gave a little description of what water module is, and then literally I'm redirecting people to go and check out the prerequisites in the glossary. So the glossary, you click here, you go to the glossary page, and this is what we have here. So I've tried to replicate the same thing as in the glossary, and I tried to keep the glossary to a little different level so that what I found here when making this document, I just wrote all these words and the stuff that I could think of. So again, and you can sort this thing out. If you want to sort it out, you can just give that explanation. You can just give that a flag that, hey, I want this thing to be sorted, and you get that thing out there. So coming back and go to the next page. This is the water module. So this is the main stuff. So what you see here, this is the whole page. I kind of rewrote and kind of expanded and just wrote my own thing. Just to give more information about like what this whole thing is about. So, and Josh and Lane, I guess, they did a pretty good job in terms of explaining the whole thing. But I thought, I'd just write a little bit more information just to make the documentation more verbose. And it's up to the people. If they don't want to do this, it's totally fine. So you go here, and these are the chapters, lesson 1, lesson 2, and lesson 3, and what are the goals that we want to do? What are the outcomes we expect out of studying this module, the water module? So this is the main stuff. So this is what, so the Python version of this page, the chapter 1 or the lesson 1. So I did the same thing here, authored by Josh and Elaine on June 3rd. And again, like because it's a very big document and it has a lot of things, the reading the time is going to be more, obviously. I don't know from where Josh and Elaine are from, so that's why I just kept it up. That's default thing. You can add cities and all those things. Now, the other thing was just to give a bit more information about this content. I added some images and some relevant stuff that when I was reading through the introduction, I just came up with an idea that I should provide more context and more information about this particular study. So I searched on, again, from NASA's website and from other Google research. I researched a Google Scholar website. I got some information, so I just added all those things here. Turns out this whole thing is kind of a subtle segue to exploring the data science life cycle. So how we do this data science thing. You get the data, you pre-process, you write code, you visualize, and then you share the results. So it's basically the same thing, just to show it like in the image format. What are the learning objectives? So what Josh wrote here, so it's the same thing, nothing different, it's the same thing. So learning objectives, what we want to do from this, and a bit of introduction. So just wanted to give some information, like what this thing is about. So this is about the water cycle, like the impact of human civilization affecting the water cycle and the freshwater reservoirs and all those things. Try to give some relevant images about this thing. Again, this can be changed, and I've tried my best to give citation and attributions to those authors and those photographers and everything. I'll show you that. I saw there was one study about the salmon affecting or getting affected because of the freshwater depletion, or like the human activities affecting the natural habitat of the salmons. So I got this one story and just linked that in here. The other thing is about like the steps, how to get started. So I just wrote some steps. Basically, what Josh has done, the same thing again, nothing different. So what he has done, he and Ellen has done. So I just rewrote the same thing, but like in a step-by-step format, just to break it down. And this is where the main stuff comes in, as in like how Sphynx, or like, this particular narrative is little better. I'm not trying to compare, but like it's better in terms of ease of use and providing more usability to the user over quarter. So here you can give tabs. So I mean, I couldn't set up my R studio, so I didn't write the R code here. But let's say if I have the R code, I would just put the R code here. But like I did everything in Python. So I set up Python here. So all the steps for Python, you install this thing, you you have your imports, what you have here again is the same thing. You can copy paste your code. You can copy again the same thing. You can copy the code here. And this was one thing what one asked me to see, like, how we can have the collapsible, or like automatically collapsed views of the X-array data array or X-array data set output. So I just wrote this thing. So like, hey, you have to set this settings in your Jupyter notebook or whatever you do, and you get those collapsed outputs. And I wrote some more things just so that like my charts look good. And I've kind of explained all those things, like how and what all these features or all these flags do. So, and a little explanation of the X-array data array and the output of it. So you can see, you can all click through all these values, and this is just local. It's just locally hosted. There's nothing, coming from the data or anything from backend. Again, this thing, the improved efficiency and all those stuff. Now showing the plots. I just directly copy pasted the output from the maps that we get. So the other thing would be the maps. So Juan, I guess, like in earlier meetings, asked me to check if we can integrate maps, and this is something I wanted to show. Like, if you say, because in the initial use case, we kind of see the map of United States, and then we just get the boundaries and we just plot the boundaries. So I thought, like, instead of just plotting the boundaries, why don't we just show the whole map and just this is fully interactive, so you can show this thing, so you can see what all the boundaries are of United States, and you can hover on top of the particular state, and it tells you the state name and all this information. Then you go a little further. You exclude the territories and the states which are outside US, and you get this particular view. So you see US is still this red part, and only the contiguous US is this orange one. Then you move on to the next section, wherein you just focus on Texas, or like just the one state. You see here, the Texas is highlighted now. So what you see here, you can visualize all those things.
Akshay, can I just jump in and quickly ask? I see that these are embedded leaflet applications. Is Leaflet a Sphynx plugin, or is there something else you did to host these Leaflet applications?
So Leaflet by itself is kind of like a JavaScript library. So, and I'm using Folium. So Folium is again an open source wrapper, which allows you to embed these maps. So allows you to embed this particular thing. And what I did is basically, I'll show you the Jupyter notebook here. So this is the notebook, what I used. I hope you can see my notebook, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so basically I kind of, so what Josh had done here. So basically I was just doing the step-by-step stuff. Okay, copy pasting the code, just running here. And when I got to the boundaries, I thought, instead of just showing the boundaries right away, why don't we just include a map? So Folium is basically like a package, and again, open source package, this thing. And you can use this to render maps and stuff. So, and it gives you, it basically uses GeoPandas, GeoJSON, and all those stuff to render a particular map and to show some stuff on the particular leaflet layout. So they have a couple of things. So like, what features you want. So it is, this is a Jupyter notebook that they have literally hosted out there, but I don't want to do that. I want to have control on what I show to the user. So what I did is I wrote a module that splits this particular sections in particular different cells, and I'm showing all those snippets wherever I want. So I have written small snippets of every single, it's not like I wrote it, like what the Jupyter notebook did, I'm getting all the outputs and breaking down these outputs into smaller chunks. And I'm just showing them wherever I want to. Like, for example, when I write this text, like this snippet of extract Texas, and I want to show this particular snippet, I just render this particular, I just add that particular restructured text format below that, and it will show that thing. So
Right.
the leaflet is basically an HTML page that is stored, and the HTML page like literally costs nothing to host. So that's something I did check in terms of the space. And because I do remember like Dr. Tovar was like constantly focusing on the usage based on 2I2C's constraints. So will it be able to handle all this load or not? So yes, this is just the whole web page, the map that you see, right? So it's basically an HTML page, and I'm just rendering that particular HTML page here.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that we get the functionality, but we don't get the overhead of it, because we don't want to have that thing on us, because and as long as like this web page is loaded you through a CDN, we don't care. It just works fine. Any other questions about this one? Because this is little important. So
No, it makes sense. I think that, you did some value add there, but I wasn't sure how Leaflet was embedded, but I see now it's just an HTML page.
yeah, it's basically just an empty HTML, I mean like a dead HTML page that kind of just works here when you include it, because for Sphinx, everything is like an HTML page. So, it considers like another HTML page that is being used. And then basically the whole thing. So what you see here, I just like rewrote the same thing. And yeah, so this would be the transfer, the migration of the existing lesson 1 to the Sphinx version of this thing. Again, you can have tables and stuff. Again, these tables are like not rendered, not coming from backend or anything. These are like stored in the REST files. So so this is basically again a REST file. So and you don't have to generate this; it automatically gets generated. So you just have to tell REST, and you have to tell your document, hey, where do you want to have this thing? So like, for example, if I copy this particular code, and if I see this, okay, it's here. If I search this particular thing, what's this? Oh yeah, so this is a particular code snippet, right? So I'll show you this thing, Jan picture. Oh, yeah, so here, now this particular section, so if you see exam, extract, or return summary, blah, blah, blah. So you see the same description here. And here, if you see, I've just written include WSIM24. So WSIM24 is this. And in WSIM24, do you have like the code block and the table? So whatever you see, the interactive table, you just show that thing out there. So you don't have to focus on it. And this particular table is exactly the table that you see in your Jupyter Notebook. So what you see on your Jupyter Notebook is exactly the same output you get here. So you see the CC summaries, 0 to 10,
Actually,
Alpine.
I'm wondering what the time is to create each of these, or is it something that it's automatic and it just creates all of them at the same time?
it creates all of them at the same time. So what I did was I published one package on PyPI. So what it does, it basically takes a Jupyter notebook as an input and it breaks it down into different cells. So I'll show you that. So when I go here, so CD, yes, I'll just CD. Course, Python, and what else? So if I'm here, so here if I see, this is the name of the Jupyter notebook. And
Yeah.
when I do this Jupyter cell, so this is something I wrote, Jupyter cell convert notebook initial test. And like if you want to give a prefix, because if you see here, like everything starts with wsim hyphen, I can just give that prefix. So let's say prefix demo dash. So it basically creates this particular thing. So what you see here, all these cells, the Jupyter Notebook cells, they're kind of broken down into the respective sections. So demo 1 will have all the stuff, demo 2 would have only this thing, and you just have to call them. If you don't want all these things, you can just embed a whole Jupyter Notebook, and that's fine too. But this gives you a lot of control, because if you want to explain things step by step, like here how Josh has done, he explained, okay, we first import this thing, then we do this. In that case, having those step by step directives make a lot of sense. And you just basically include them. So where did it go? Yeah, so you basically just include those particular snippets wherever you want to. So that's how you can drive a step by step story narrative. I hope
Understood.
that's
Thank
clear.
you.
Okay.
Yes.
And then there's just a bunch of diagrams, plots, again, the same thing. And yeah, so this is the whole reference. What you did, so just added some references from what you get here onto the pages. And then I just wrote the basics, like how to get started guide for the open science. Like if someone's coming here to contribute, like what can they do? And just wrote some stuff like, what it means, just wrote some images, put in some images and stuff. And couple of things, you can have tabs, like I just showed you, there's R and Python tab, but this is like a normal tab. If you want to, you can just put in all those tabs in here. Again, this is all Sphynx and Sphynx extension. So it's not, I have done something, creating accounts. So I saw that in the first tutorial, it's like about creating accounts. So you have to have GitHub account, the NASA data account, and all those things. I wrote that. Again, you can embed YouTube videos also. This is something I wrote, so to embed a YouTube video. And sometimes you don't want the YouTube video to start from beginning till you get to the main point. So I just added like a feature so that you can just start from a particular point. So this video automatically starts from 30 seconds because the main content starts from 30 seconds. So you don't want to have users wait till the thing it loads and stuff.
And are these the functions that you're talking about?
Oh yeah, these are the functions. So basically just write like this.
Can you show me how you do one? Can you create one?
Yeah, okay, I'll do
function?
that. Yeah, so I'll close all this thing. So now I'll show you one. Let's just put in about, and I'll put in announcements, okay? So the announcement page. Here you can see there's nothing here. So you can just write a content. So content could be, this is a test demo for NASA Ops school team. So this is just this is just a paragraph. This is just the stuff that is going to render. CD. And then you just build this thing, Sphynx build. I mean, I just write some flags, but you don't have to. And now it's building those things. And if you see, it kind of renders automatically here. So now these are just the basic stuff. That's not important. But what is important is, like, for example, if I want to give information about something, if I want to add a YouTube video, I can just write YouTube video and give the video link. So let me just quickly copy a YouTube video. Hang on, let me see.
And you said you can also do like custom functions?
Yeah, so I wrote a lot of custom functions already, but if you want to make more custom functions, you can write all by yourself. So it's not like, you have to ask me or like, you have to refer. You can just go to, or you can just search for Sphynx extensions, and you can just like, you get a bunch of extensions here already. But like, what I wanted, I didn't get those features, so I wrote my own. But like, for example, if you want to have the prompt, you can have prompt, the copy. This is something I'm using, copy button, to have the functionality of adding the copy thing. So this particular thing, the code copy button. So I didn't know how to code this thing, so I kind of just use this Sphynx copy button extension to do that. But it's up to us, like what we want to do. If you want, I'm using this one to, I've just added this one. I've not used it yet, to have more metadata so that it goes higher on the search engine optimization. So it comes quick on the search result. So you can do that. I got this YouTube video, so I'll show you this one. So I'm gonna just add the link, just build it here, and you go to announcements. And so now the playback on the side is disabled. So like if there's a public video, it will show you that one. Let me see if I have any public video here, I can show you that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's
And and so these extensions are essentially like separate files that you refer to somehow?
Oh, no, these are like all baked in the same thing. So you don't have to install anything. Once you get started, you'll get all those things by default. So you don't have to install anything different, or you don't have to think of anything. You just have to use this thing by default. So, if you have this particular theme installed, you will have those features by default. Let me try a different video. But yeah, so you get this video, which is like available on public. So you do this, and if you want to have features again, so this is something I wrote based on my use case, like what I think is relevant for this particular thing. Like for example, like speaking of this YouTube extension, I would say I want this extension to, or I want this video to start from a particular number. Okay, I don't want it to start from beginning. I can just write start from. I can just give like 30 seconds, and I don't remember like what all things I gave. Yeah, it's start from or something. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. I do it.
Yeah, so these are the extensions. So I wrote all the extension here and just gave some couple of things. So yeah, it start from. So now it start from, if you see the video automatically starts from 30 seconds. So you don't have to wait till that particular point. And
So the extensions are Python.
Yeah, these are just like
scripts.
Python extension. Exactly, yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
and I wrote these extensions in a way that even the extensions are scalable. So you don't have to do a lot of like, stuff. You just have to write this one class, this other class, and these two functions. That's it. And I wrote it in a way that every single extension looks the same in a plugin in terms of the signature. So node, directive, visit, depart, and HTML context. You just define your own thing, and it will work out of the box. So if you want to extend, or if you want to add new functionalities, you can just add those new functionalities by yourself.
Right. Yeah, Akshay, I'm just cognizant that we have about 20 more minutes left in the meeting, and I wanted to make sure we opened it up for questions and discussion.
Oh yeah.
I guess I have two questions, but the first question is why Sphynx and not Quarto? What did you conclude on that?
So yeah, so first reason was like, when I started thinking of this one, like how to get started with this, the reason why I'm focusing on only on Sphynx is you get a lot of customization. And the thing is, I'm assuming that a lot of people coming to this platform are students or someone who has no idea of things, how to get started. Because even I have worked with Python a lot, but like, the data science libraries a lot, but I'm still going back to XA's documentation because, there are so many things and they kind of keep changing of like all the time. So I'm assuming a lot of people are not going to be familiar with a lot of stuff. And it would be much better if I could give them a lot of information and keep the information in front of them. What happens is in Quarto, like I'll show you this one example. So if I want to talk about the Xarray or like, IPython. So in this case, I'm talking about like, here like Josh has he did a good job of explaining things, what this particular function does, like, you read the file using this particular function, that's it. But what Sphinx allows you to do is just give links to those independent stuff, and it kind of takes you to the source material, so that if you are curious, it doesn't hamper your progress. As in, you don't have to go back and forth. So all the information is available on the page itself. So it's up to the author, like how much information the author is ready to put in and provide to the users. And we don't want to give the users a chance to complain that, hey, we didn't find this information over there. That's what we didn't study. We didn't just go through it. That's one. And second thing is a lot of control. You get a lot of control when you use Sphinx. You won't get that thing with Posit Quarto, because Sphinx allows you to literally customize and hold a lot of things, what you want, how you want to render those pages, when you want to build those pages. When you do this cloud deployment, you can set all those flags in the GitHub Action pipelines, and you can literally say, I want to build my local files, as in I want to build files based on like in a Spanish language. I want to have my files based on English language, and I can allow all those things to work through the Sphinx flags, the Sphinx building flag. But you don't get that with Quarto. I tried this thing, okay, trust me, like I literally went through all the stuff to check what is better. The only good benefit of using Quarto is Quarto uses Markdown, and Markdown is universally the simplest language. So to get started. So there is no doubt, even I kind of do advocate for Markdown. Markdown is super simple to use. But once you start writing something in restructured text, things become super easy, and it just becomes intuitive to get started with it.
Sure, that makes sense. My other question was about the R integration. Is it just a matter that we kind of ran out of time to figure that out, or I'm worried just about what kind of hurdles would we face with R integration?
It's the same thing. So, I kind of ran out of time because I didn't install the R Studio. I'm still having some problems. I don't know why. I literally formatted the whole system, but like it's still having some issues. But the R code is the same thing, You just have to, like, let's say, like someone else is doing the R code. What I'm doing in Python, they just have to write the same R code here. That's it, You don't have to do anything else. You just have to write the R code here. They can write in Jupyter Notebooks also, because you can write R in Jupyter Notebooks as well. I think there's an extension to do that, but like the same thing. You write it in Jupyter Notebook, and then you can run the same function. You can just like split it into different cells, and you can add them wherever you want to. And if you to keep things super, super simple, I would say if you write these things in parallel, like one in Python and one in R, in the first cell, okay, I have imported all the modules. I can do the same thing in R. And second module, I have kept all my customization things. In third module, I have kept this thing. In third cell, sorry, not module, like third cell, fourth cell. What I do in Python, if I do the same thing in R, in my Jupyter Notebooks, I literally just have to copy paste the same thing. Like, for example, it would be just like this. You copy this and you put it here, and that's it. It would just be that simple thing. But like we have to give like a different name, like in Python R or something like this.
Sure.
Yeah,
it makes sense. So I want to open it up for other folks to ask questions, including you, Akshay, if we wanted to turn a question towards us.
I'll first take in the questions. I'll make some notes, and they can ask questions later on.
Hi, let me get my image there going. I'm interested to hear from Dan or Josh, because you guys were here before us, and you guys were working on this, and we started looking at this other way of using, you know, publishing this thing, right? So we start also looking at it from an UI and UX perspective. But how can we make that better? You know, how does Quarto help us do that? And we found out that using the Sphinx is better because it's a little bit more technical. You want to argue that, right? Because it's a different markup language. But I think, and by the way, Artworks actually showed me some code already with that thing. But the idea is, I want to make sure it's sustainable. That's always been my deal, right? Can we sustain this in the long run? Because once actually, I keep saying this, wins the lottery, right? He's gonna go, okay, guys, I'm done. See you later, right? Can we keep this going? Can you know, the next group of people keep this going? That's the question that we have. The UI and UX obviously is much better, right? I wrote it down here. We're going to need to get a couple of people to start looking at that, just at that, to make sure the whole thing is consistent, right? But that's once we decide, hey, I think this is where we're gonna go, right? But it's really about that sustainability question. Can we sustain this in the long run as we continue with this?
Yeah, it makes sense. Dan, Josh, Greg, anyone want to chime in?
Sure, I can. Yeah, extremely concerned about sustainability and maintenance because we're like halfway through, and I mean, we went through this on a previous project, and we generated lots of Drupal integration, and we spent a lot of time and wasted a lot of hours and billable hours on that, which is why we have a Quarto website now, so we can just focus and make the content. Personally, I would like a more modern, feature-rich UI-based website, but none of us on the team, I think, have time to build or maintain that. Or we do, but we would then have no content because we wouldn't be working on the content. So my personal preference would be, and this is things to discuss within teams and between teams, is I would like a landing page for a backend or a landing website, not just a page, that is a Sphinx face or some other modern feature looking UI experience. And for now, leave the vignettes alone because I don't see us changing our dev process on the content generation end to accommodate this type of integration unless there's like lots of other people who are willing to do it for free on their own time. So that would be my concern. It would be awesome to see a very nice looking landing page with module homepages, maybe the glossary, maybe our videos, and be able to take care of a lot of that advanced UI. And then we would link out to our individual lessons for the time being as they currently exist, and go from there. Because there's just going to, I'd be concerned about the amount of hooks or extensions that need to be developed to accommodate whatever the content's going to be in like 24 lessons spread across Python and R. That's my initial thought, but that's something that we would probably discuss more at our next internal team meeting, I would think.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. So I think Josh is suggesting maybe that there's some hybrid solution where we get some of this feature-rich content, but also, you know, as our developers have been using the Quarto framework, they can focus on content and maybe link out to Quarto in certain cases or embed Quarto within Sphinx even. Dan or Greg, did you?
No, I mean, I've worked on other projects that are using Sphinx. So in terms of maintainability, you know, it's a stable platform. It's not going anywhere. I don't think you're going to have a problem, you know, 5 years from now where, you know, Sphinx is unsupported and you're having to migrate because of that. I've also developed extensions for it, and as you know, as code that's been around for a long time, it can get a little gnarly in there too. You know, it's not a modern Python library. It's sort of the flip side of having it be very stable. So if you have a lot of custom extensions and you have to make a lot of changes to them or so forth, you need somebody who's pretty comfortable working in old Python code.
Sure, that makes sense.
As far as having content, mixed between Quarto and Sphinx, one project I'm working on is it needs to be in Sphinx for other reasons, but we have sort of vignette type information that we want to present, and it is possible to just essentially dump a whole Jupyter notebook in and have it rendered as a page without having kind of the fine level of control that Akshay was showing. So,
Hey Dan, do you know if sorry Dan, do you know, just because it's on that point there, do you know is Jupyter, or anybody can answer this? My understanding a year ago was that if you want to run R inside of a Jupyter notebook, you're limited to maybe an older version of R. Like it's not, you can't just have access to the newest R kernel, for lack of a better term, inside of a Jupyter notebook if you run R within a Jupyter notebook. Does anybody know the answer to that? No one. Okay.
Not something I've experienced.
Yeah,
I was just curious because that was another one of my concerns a year ago when we were talking about using Jupyter notebooks for content development, was that when I went through the steps to get it locked in with R, it was not only a little annoying to get it set up, but also that we were restricted to like R 3.11 or something, even though the modern R was 4.2 or something like this. So that's something that is worth investigating, I guess, if we need to, if we ultimately went towards the Sphinx content-based creation and our lessons would need to be able to be compatible with whatever limitations, if they do exist, are for R and Jupyter. So
Sure.
Josh, I know that there is a Quarto to Jupyter Notebook package that will translate your Quarto page into a Jupyter Notebook document.
okay. Yes, I'm more speaking to running. If we were to compile an R-based lesson inside of a Jupyter notebook, I believe we are limited in what version of R you can use.
Sure.
I see.
Sure. We'll have to look into that. Greg, I noticed you came off mute. Did you want to make a comment?
Two things. One, I think you're right with respect to versions, but I don't know specifically, within Sphinx, but I know that I vaguely remember reading about, particular version of R inside of Jupyter, unless there's some workaround, but it seems like it's just for your local machine, not for a cloud solution. Anyway, I'm not familiar with Sphinx. This all looks great. The only question I had, I've done an implementation with Plotly, which is Python, but it's more for interactive, scientific notebooks, and probably not as comprehensive as Sphinx. I think it's maybe much less developed. But is that kind of, if you're familiar with it, interaction between plots and data frames possible, I presume?
Yeah, we can do that. So we can integrate like the Plotly and Dash widgets inside a Sphinx section. So that is possible to do that. So there's Plotly, Sphinx. So there is literally a directive to do this. Again, all these directives are basically an extension. So you can see, you can just like see the document and just get started with it. So it's literally, we have the whole thing. So you just write like this. So what I was showing YouTube video or something like this, you just write Plotly and you just write the Plotly stuff, and it allows you to do this. So as you can see, this is again a Sphinx website. You can see it's built with Sphinx. It's Sphinx website, and I can interact with the whole thing. I can take a screenshot and everything. So whatever you see and what you do in Plotly, you can do the same thing here.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, I realize. Sorry,
Oh.
I just know we're going to run out of time, and I just want to
shoot.
give Akshay a chance if he has any questions for us.
I mean, I don't have much questions because like I just like did the whole thing and it worked. So a couple of things. So for the R one, so I am not sure exactly. This was an issue back in 2022 because I did face the same thing because we had to pin the R version to a particular thing when I was working with Jupyter Notebook. But I'm not sure what has changed. I've not used R since the last 1 year or something. But I'll quickly check that thing and I'll let you guys know. But we can still embed the R code. So like how you have done here. So we can still embed the R code. I'm not sure how the output will look like, so I can't give you an exact answer as of now. Like here, you can see you get the actual output. You know how you can see the interactive output and stuff. So I'm not sure how the output would be for the R. If this just a printed out thing, then it's fine. I can just show this thing to you. Then it would work just fine. There's no problem. But if there's an interactivity like this with all the values and tables and all those things, then it would become a challenge for me to just see and give you comment as of now because I have to check that thing. But I don't know if there's an interactivity like included, then it shouldn't be if there is no interactivity, if there's just a plain output, then it's fine. I can do this R also, and you don't have to do anything, and so you just write code and just print out the output.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Sorry to have interrupted, Josh. Did you want to finish what you were going to
No,
say?
I was just going to say that if something, if we're looking to increase the kind of HTML based interactivity, whether it's Plotly or Leaflet or DT or D3 or any of that kind of stuff, there's there's R packet. You can do all that stuff in R. So if we want to, I choose not to render nice HTML tables just because we're in a hurry. And I choose to just show the geometries instead of creating a leaflet map just because we're in a hurry. So, but if as a team we want to do stuff like that or have other students go through our lessons and swap out static ggplot stuff for D3 or Plotly or Leaflet, that's also a good idea, I would say, and we can increase the user experience through ways like that
Also,
in our existing framework.
Yeah. Also, since we have these multiple modules, we're not restricted to having one implementation across to everything. I think it's nice, but our students are probably going to pick one module or another. So as long as we're consistent within the module, I think we're good. It gives us this flexibility to try out these different things. So I know it's 4 o'clock and many of us have a hard stop, myself included. Thanks so much, Akshay, for all the work that you put into this. And, it's really impressive. And, for demoing it to us, we'll have more time to talk. And it sounds like we need to talk some more. But for today, it's a lot of food.